It's been said time and time again that Kurt Angle's rookie year in the World Wrestling Federation was one of the greatest, most successful rookie years in the history of the company. Kurt had proven very early in his career that he was worthy of WWF Championship gold, and the year 2000 would prove to be an incredibly successful year for Angle, a man who just debuted in November of 1999. I already uploaded a video that looked at Kurt Angle's debut and his first couple of months within the company, but that video pretty much ended right after the 2000 Royal Rumble and before Kurt began adding championship titles to his resume. So let's take a look at Angle's storied rookie year and pick out some key moments and matches. I definitely recommend checking out the previous Kurt Angle debut video that was uploaded on Wrestling Bios before getting stuck in here, but here's a quick recap. Kurt Angle made his debut at the 1999 Survivor Series in Detroit, Michigan, gaining a victory over Shawn Stasiak. Angle was under the impression that fans would cheer for him thanks to his accomplishments in the 1996 Olympic Games, but Vince McMahon knew otherwise. Vince knew there was a great opportunity here for Kurt Angle to become this smug, pretentious character who thought he was a hero to fans when, in reality, fans would grow tired of his delusional bragging. It worked wonders. Kurt Angle's character felt like he was everyone's Olympic hero. Fans may have felt otherwise, but the key element in all of this was the fact that Kurt Angle really was an Olympic gold medalist. He really did have an impressive amateur background, and he was already showing incredible promise as a WWE professional wrestler. They say a good heel adds some truth to what they say on the mic, and Kurt Angle was absolutely everything he said he was, except he was maybe a little off the mark when he said he was a hero to WWF fans, and that's where the great heel work came into play. It's easy to overlook the genius of Kurt Angle's character during this time period though, and as much as everyone likes to bash Vince McMahon these days, you have to give him credit for seeing Kurt Angle as a potential heel. Okay, so Kurt Angle won his debut match at the 1999 Survivor Series. He then went on to Armageddon where he defeated Steve Blackman, and then at the 2000 Royal Rumble, Kurt Angle took his first loss when Taz choked him out in the middle of the ring. Kurt tried to convince us all that Taz used an illegal chokehold and therefore the victory should not stand. This led to Taz choking Angle out once again on Raw. Let's pick up then right where we left off. It's really here where Kurt sees a tremendous amount of championship gold, kicking off the real success of his rookie year. On the February 3rd, 2000 episode of SmackDown, Kurt Angle was able to defeat The Rock and Taz in a triple threat match that's really fun to go back and watch. The very next week, again on SmackDown, Kurt Angle was able to capture his very first WWF Championship when he defeated Val Venis for the European title. So in under 3 months, Kurt was able to win a championship belt. It didn't stop there though, as Kurt Angle went on to defeat Chris Jericho at No Way Out 2000 to also capture the Intercontinental Championship. You have to take a step back and look at this achievement though. In such a short period of time, Kurt Angle was booked to hold 2 singles championships within the World Wrestling Federation. Remember, it's the year 2000, the WWF's roster was absolutely stacked at this point. Winning both of these titles at the same time gave the holder the unofficial name of Eurocontinental Champion. After defending his titles against the likes of Chris Jericho, Rikishi and Taz on TV, Kurt Angle was featured in his very first WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 2000, and in my opinion, Angle, along with Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit, stole the show with their entertaining triple threat match. This triple threat match was quite unique. There would be 2 falls during the match, the Intercontinental title would be on the line during the first fall, and the European title was put up for grabs during the second. What we ended up getting was around 15 minutes of exciting, fast-paced action. All 3 of these men were trying to prove themselves as main players within the World Wrestling Federation. Guys like The Rock and Triple H may have been in the main event of WrestleMania 2000, but this triple threat match here felt more like a statement from these 3 guys who were trying to claw their way to the top. It really was that good, and it's one of those matches that you just need to see. I guarantee you'll be glued to your screen right from the entrances. Keep in mind too that initially Chris Jericho was scheduled to main event WrestleMania 2000 in the Fatal 4-Way WWF Championship match, but his spot went to Mick Foley, so Chris was eager to prove a point at WrestleMania 2000. Chris Benoit had only made his WWF debut a month before WrestleMania, so this was also a big opportunity for Benoit to prove himself on the WWF's biggest stage. And then we had Kurt Angle, the WWF's rookie sensation who had been having great match after great match. The ingredients were definitely here for a good bout, and all three men in their respective WrestleMania debuts here 100% delivered. Anyway, Kurt would end up losing both belts here without being pinned or without submitting. Benoit pinned Jericho to win the IC title, and Angle lost his European title when Jericho pinned Benoit. It was the perfect way to get both belts off Kurt while keeping him protected, and also the match finish played perfectly into Angle's character. He never really lost, and he would spend a lot of time reminding us of this fact. While still sulking over losing both of his titles, claiming that children across America had to miss school because they were crying so much and things like that, Kurt Angle went on to feud with The Big Show, resulting in a loss at Backlash 2000 to the Showster, as it were. After this slight hiccup, Kurt was given an opportunity to show off his comedy skills when he began teaming up with Edge and Christian. On the May 11th, 2000 episode of SmackDown, this trio was put together for the first time when Team Eck took on the Hardy Boys and Chris Jericho. Before the match, Edge, Christian and Angle done a great job of patting each other on the back, and the three men went on to secure the win here on SmackDown. Their over-the-top backstage celebration afterwards gave us the impression that we maybe hadn't seen the end of this trio, and this was a good thing. While all of this was going on, Kurt Angle was slowly aligning himself with someone else, another heel in the company who was involved in the WWF's biggest storylines at the time, and that was Stephanie McMahon Helmsley. Stephanie had a kinda underlying attraction to Kurt Angle, something that was built slowly over time with the intention of a Kurt Angle versus Triple H match down the road, and while this match did indeed happen, it's been reported that the storyline was altered towards the end to keep Stephanie with Triple H, but more on that later. Rikishi and Too Cool were able to defeat Edge, Christian and Kurt Angle at Judgment Day 2000. Most people though will remember the pre-match promo where we got the 5-second jug band pose in the middle of the ring. The next night on Raw, a rematch was booked where Edge, Christian and Kurt Angle were able to score the victory, and the creative team must have noticed how entertaining these three guys were on the mic, so naturally they were given more time to talk smack before their matches. The next time we would see Edge, Christian and Kurt together in the ring would be on the 5th of June episode of Raw where they defeated the Dudley Boys and Chris Jericho. However, the trio would end up getting defeated the same week on SmackDown, courtesy of the Dudley Boys in a handicap match. I honestly can't say enough good things about this team of Edge, Christian and Kurt Angle. Angle was already a funny guy with a great sense of comedic timing, but this team here allowed Angle to come out of his shell a whole lot more. All three guys were on the same page, and they provided some really entertaining matches and segments. Thankfully, we would see more of this trio down the road. Kurt had qualified for the 2000 King of the Ring, and his mission within the WWF was to win the whole tournament. After qualifying for the King of the Ring by defeating Bradshaw on Raw, Kurt Angle defeated Bubba Ray Dudley in his first round match. At the King of the Ring pay-per-view itself, Angle was able to defeat Chris Jericho, Crash Holly, and finally, Kurt defeated Rikishi to become the 2000 King of the Ring, adding another big accomplishment here to Kurt's rookie year. The King of the Ring itself, by this point, had kinda lost some of its prestige over the past few years, and this wasn't at all because of the guys who won the tournament, but the WWF itself hadn't really done anything of note with their most recent King of the Ring winners at the time. The King of the Ring usually led on to bigger and better things, but after guys like Ken Shamrock and Billy Gunn won the tournament, it just seemed like nothing was done to capitalise on the big victory. With Kurt Angle though, things definitely got back on track when he won King of of the Ring. Not only did Kurt relish in his victory, but he also went full-blown King Kurt for a while, and the WWF did begin booking him higher on the cards immediately following his King of the Ring victory. What we should also note here though is just how good of a reaction Kurt Angle got at the King of the Ring pay-per-view. Even as a heel, fans were cheering for Kurt, and again, keep in mind, this guy was still in his rookie year. The night following the King of the Ring pay-per-view, Angle's push went to the next level. His coronation ceremony was interrupted by Triple H and new commissioner Mick Foley bickering over the number one contender for the WWF Championship, but Kurt made his way to the ring to explain that he should be the number one contender. After all, he did just beat 3 guys in one night while Triple H just lost the WWF title. Mick Foley booked a non-title triple threat match for the main event. Triple H and Kurt Angle would face WWF Champion The Rock. If The Rock won, then neither Angle nor Hunter would be named the number one contender. It was a good match here. Rock ended up pinning Hunter, so Kurt would have to wait a little while longer before getting a championship opportunity. Throughout this whole time period, Stephanie McMahon was there to ensure things went smoothly for Kurt Angle, as long as helping Kurt didn't interfere with Triple H's business. Whether it was booking matches that favoured the Olympic hero, or whether it was Stephanie physically helping Kurt win matches, Triple H's wife seemed to have a soft spot for Angle, and it was becoming more and more obvious as time went on. Soon enough, Kurt Angle would have to face Triple H one-on-one, but before we get there, Angle would bump into the American badass Undertaker, and the two would come face to face at Fully Loaded 2000. Triple H and Kurt Angle had teamed up on the July 17th episode of Raw in a losing effort against the Brothers of Destruction, but the bigger story here was Stephanie McMahon. She was showing more and more affection towards Kurt Angle, and Triple H was beginning to notice. The Kurt Angle vs Undertaker match at Fully Loaded 2000 is definitely worth your time. Two very skilled wrestlers that worked very different styles, but it was still great. Kurt went into the match a little worried. His usual obnoxious tendencies had left him. He was worried about getting into the ring with The Undertaker, and it all just made for a great story. Could the American hero overcome the American badass, a man who Kurt Angle had provoked in the weeks leading up to Fully Loaded, and the man who Kurt Angle eventually learned to fear? Unfortunately, this wasn't Kurt Angle's night. Undertaker put Kurt away with a thunderous last ride, but what's important to remember here is Kurt Angle just had a pay-per-view match with The Undertaker. He really had come a long way from his debut match with Shawn Stasiak at the 1999 Survivor Series. The Triple H vs Kurt Angle feud then would begin boiling over when Kurt and Stephanie hugged each other after a match on SmackDown. On the August 3rd episode, Triple H, Stephanie and Kurt defeated the Dudley Boys and Lita in a 6-man tag, and after gaining the win, Stephanie and Kurt had a little victory cuddle in the ring. Triple H was seething, but to be fair, Triple H was also caught getting a little close to Trish Stratus, even if it was unintentional. So the McMahon-Helmsley relationship was a little rocky here, to say the least. On the August 7th edition of Raw is War, Angle and Triple H were booked into a triple threat match along with Chris Jericho to determine the number one contender for The Rock's WWF Championship. Both Hunter and Kurt pinned Jericho at the same time, so a triple threat WWF Championship match was booked for SummerSlam, Angle vs Triple H vs The Rock. The relationship between Stephanie and Kurt Angle got thrown into orbit when Angle kissed Stephanie McMahon backstage while Triple H wasn't around, and to give the WWF credit here, fans were eager to see Angle and Hunter step into the ring. People wanted to see these two heels go at it. At SummerSlam, neither Angle nor Hunter were able to capture the WWF Championship. The Rock scored the pinfall win, but the story of this match was Stephanie McMahon's involvement. Not only did Stephanie accidentally hit Triple H with the WWF Championship belt, but later on, Triple H accidentally hit Stephanie. So coming out of SummerSlam, we kinda knew that the love triangle storyline would continue. Also of note regarding the SummerSlam main event is the fact that Kurt Angle got a legitimate concussion during this match. The scripting of the match would have seen Triple H pedigree Kurt Angle through the announcer's table. Kurt would get stretchered out of the arena, but he would return later on with Stephanie. This still happened, but during the pedigree spot, the table gave way and Kurt ended up getting seriously hurt, landing awkwardly and giving himself a concussion. He legitimately had to get stretchered out. The match was always scripted for Kurt to disappear from the match and then return a little later though, so the actual booking of the match wasn't altered due to Kurt's injury. As briefly mentioned earlier, it's been reported that this storyline here was originally going to see Stephanie McMahon go off with Kurt Angle for a while in order to turn Triple H babyface, but plans were changed and the storyline kinda fizzled out after the Unforgiven pay-per-view. In the run-up to Unforgiven, the relationship between Stephanie and Kurt got more heavy while Triple H's jealousy was on show for all to see. Even a reunion between Triple H and China was teased, but in the end, nothing came of it, and the whole thing was seemingly dropped out of nowhere. Triple H defeated Kurt Angle at the Unforgiven show in a great no disqualification match. The bout is actually kinda underrated and it never really gets talked about, but the finish saw Stephanie being forced to choose between Kurt and Hunter, and in the end, she delivered a low blow to Kurt, and so Stephanie would remain by Hunter's side. Strangely, following Unforgiven, Stephanie and Angle would still remain friends. Mrs. Helmsley would accompany Angle to the ring on occasions and she would still offer her assistance as Angle's business partner, but the main love triangle narrative of the story was dropped. Triple H would kinda push Angle around, telling him that Stephanie was his responsibility when she stood at ringside during Kurt's matches, and if anything happened to Stephanie, well, Triple H would come after Kurt Angle. News publications and dirt sheets everywhere believed Dave Meltzer when he said Triple H put a stop to the storyline because no one would believe a woman would leave Triple H for someone like Kurt Angle. And if you want to believe that, then that's cool. Just remember, you can't pick and choose when to believe Dave Meltzer just because his agenda may align with your feelings towards a specific storyline or wrestler. After defeating Triple H on Raw to become the #1 contender, No Mercy 2000 would see Kurt Angle reach another goal within his rookie year in the World Wrestling Federation. The former Eurocontinental Champion and King of the Ring winner faced The Rock in a WWF Championship match, and Kurt Angle became the man. Angle won the title in another entertaining match. It was a huge achievement here for Angle. He was able to capture the big one within his first WWF year. Rock and Angle went on for around 20 minutes. It was one of the better main events of the 2000 pay-per-view calendar, and admittedly, I didn't think Angle would win the gold here when I watched this show live at the time, but it was great to see another new talent get this kind of mega push in the year 2000. The odds were stacked against The Rock here though. Not only did he have to deal with Stephanie McMahon on the outside and eventually Triple H, but Rikishi showed up during the match, accidentally hitting The Rock twice and ultimately costing the Great One the WWF Championship. Still, take nothing away from Angle's achievement here. Kurt had proven in 11 short months that he was capable of being a world champion. To wrap up Angle's rookie year, we will take a look at the 2000 Survivor Series before ending this video. Kurt Angle got another opportunity to step into the ring with The Undertaker, and he would fare much better this time, albeit with a little help from his brother, Eric Angle. There wasn't much story going into this one. Undertaker had become the #1 contender after winning a 4 corners match on SmackDown. Stephanie did not come to the ring with Kurt Angle this time. The Game was busy feuding with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And yeah, that's it pretty much. Angle played a much more confident role in this Survivor Series match in comparison to his showdown with The Undertaker at Fully Loaded. The success had gone to his head, in storyline anyway, and so Kurt was able to get a little more aggressive with the American Badass this time. Well, at least when The Undertaker allowed him to do so. Anyway, in the closing moments of the match, Kurt escaped under the ring. The Undertaker pulled Kurt out, Taker delivered the last ride, but Earl Hebner noticed that this wasn't Kurt Angle who just took The Undertaker's finisher. Earl tried to explain to The Undertaker that his opponent in the ring wasn't Kurt, it was somebody else, and during the confusion, Kurt ran back into the ring and scored a sneaky pinfall win. Undertaker got fooled with the old switcheroo. It was Kurt Angle's brother who took the last ride. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed this look back at Kurt Angle's first year within the WWF. What stands out here too, and something that I just thought of while watching this year back, is that Kurt Angle did take a fair amount of losses during his rookie year also, particularly on pay-per-views, and yet his first year is always brought up when discussing exceptional debuts. This is something you should keep in mind when reading stories about wrestlers getting buried in modern WWE or AEW, whatever it may be. Losing matches simply doesn't equate to getting buried. It doesn't. WrestleMania 2000 being a shining example. If someone took 2 losses and lost 2 belts in a single night, fans today would get seriously upset while throwing out imaginary stories about how a wrestler has annoyed Vince McMahon backstage or something or another. Kurt Angle was able to still look like an absolute star even when taking losses, and it's pure God-given talent and a great sense of timing, both in the ring and on the mic, that got Kurt Angle over, in my opinion. In the future, I'll definitely come back to discuss Kurt Angle's next steps in the World Wrestling Federation. Year 1 was great, but there's still loads more matches and moments to look at when it comes to the Olympic gold medalist. Again, thank you for watching.